Didn't show up. Hello, everyone. Bear with. Bear with. Uh, I have a wobbly desk. Anyway, I'm hoping this works now. Hope that my audio problems are fixed. I was trying to get the headset and it wasn't showing up in my options. So anyway, welcome everyone. 3 is the charm, right? I hope everyone's surviving fascism. I'm doing the best I can. We have a lot going on right now. I'm trying to take care of my mental health. I hope you are too. Please do take rests frequently. If you have a social connection, please connect with them. Again, this all is supposed to be a marathon, not a sprint. So you're going to have to tap out occasionally, and you're going to have to go ahead and say, I need a break and go and do normal things. Because if and people, are struggling with work, they're struggling with money, they're struggling with all kind of sorts of things. So it is really important to kind of like acknowledge that and, be able to, rationally and calmly work through this, because if you burn yourself out, you're no good to anyone. As they say in the airplane business, please put your oxygen mask on yourself first before you handle your child or your husband. Okay. Anyway, I'm just, I'm sorry. It's the weekend, so I'm gonna be drinking a little bit of wine because I need to relax, right? Um, I This is kind of the first weekend I actually feel somewhat decently. I've been going, and it is very it is a very trying time. I have a lot of stress at work. I feel like I work for a nonprofit mental health agency, and I feel like there's this big elephant in the room, and we're not really talking because I guess we can't really talk about. I guess we can't really talk about the elephant in the room because we're a nonprofit and we are forbidden. Unlike religious institutions like churches who, seem to be fine with violating that part of their nonprofit. They feel like they don't have to abide by it. They can talk politics and say all the crazy stuff. Um, but our agency is moral. So anyway, I got to my first protest, amazingly, last weekend because I got into a physical back injury and had car issues and just all sorts of things. And it has been really hard for me to get out. But I am glad that I finally got out last weekend. I met some of my neighbors and a really great bunch of women. And yeah, so they're going to be out this Labor Day doing another protest. I will not be joining them, but I have been busy making signage and zines. I make a lot of zines, Zines, and they're these little 8-page mini zines. I don't even know if I have one on my desk. Maybe I do. So yeah, so they're like this, right? And they have their little pages, their little booklets. And if you are interested in in acquiring the template for this, please let me know, and I can send it to you or post it in the links. Actually, maybe I'll just go ahead and post it. But yeah, so that's kind of what I have been doing because that's what I can do. I don't have a lot of time to go out. I've got other responsibilities, unfortunately. Adult stuff. They always like to keep us busy, but for the most part, so I'm trying to be a supportive role and trying to get out there. I believe in being vocal. I don't think, anybody that is under the impression that we are not yet in fascism is delusional. We are fully in the beginnings of fascism. And I say beginnings, but I also mean that we are in fascism. Okay. You can't sit there and say, "Oh, well, we haven't gotten into the fashion." No, we're pretty much there. I mean, this is like all the people who want to have a fascist state are in place. And this is what is we have changed the courts. We have sympathetic courts to fascism. We have a autocratic, dictatorial individual along with his replacement. We just have a lot of signs that are already there. You can't sit there and say, well, maybe if this happens, then we'll really be. No, we're in fascism, folks. Maybe it doesn't look like Handmaid's Tale yet, but it will if you do not do something. And it doesn't really matter if you are a liberal or you consider yourself more conservative or more moderate. Please allow yourself to talk to each other. And this is my message. Now, other people may be more specific about um specific issues, whatever. Um, sorry, I'm like trying to hold on. Sorry. I hope this is didn't get too interrupted. Hi, I don't know who is out there. Oh, hey. Hey, Earthkeeper. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining. So, yeah, so what I was saying, I don't know, look, you've been there. Um, so yeah, so I mean, anybody that thinks that we're not already in fascism is deluding themselves, right? Like we are in fascism. And again, like I was starting to say, we don't have a lot of like it may not look directly like The Handmaid's Tale or something you saw from a movie because that's not how the world works. Okay. We have to recognize what we are in. Now, like what I was starting to say is that if you are, say, if you consider yourself a liberal or you consider yourself an anarchist or you consider yourself a libertarian or conservative or Christian or Jewish or whatever, whoever you are, whoever you identify yourself as, please understand that any of this stuff can affect you someday. Okay. You may think that you're on the right side of history, but in fact, this is where we are right now. Um, and the ultimate message that you really need to understand is the fact that a lot of people are violating natural law. And what I mean by natural law, and natural law is a term that I'm not really comfortable with, but it is something like universal law, karmic law. Um, but natural law is a lot of times used by a lot of very fundamentalist Catholic types, and that's not really what I'm talking about. I understand like people talk about God's law versus man's law, etc. It's not really all that complicated. It basically is that, you know, if you are violating just basic morality, if you're violating someone else's rights, right? You know, and you think that, well, I'm on the right side of righteousness, but then you're violating someone else's rights. Are you? So I'm kind of getting off track. I got a little distracted then. See you working hard. Like a yin yang. Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm working hard. Yep, I'm getting those cat boxes done. Anyway, um yeah. So, a lot of the go and tell your friends to come to my podcast. My thing is hold on. My desk is all it still is wobbly. Anyway, so I'm getting kind of off on to a tangent. Anyway, can you hear me okay? Can you please give me some feedback whether or not I sound okay live? Are you on Spotify? I have been on Spotify. I'm not on Spotify because they keep changing their recording platform, so it's just I keep having to learn something new. I used to be. I do have a podcast. I haven't been on there a long time because of the way everything is going. But thank you for that. Yeah, Out of the Forest is on Spotify if you want to listen to some of my earlier records. Okay, great. I sound okay. Good. I was worried about that because I'm looking at my little volume thing. Anyway, um, so yeah. So what I was saying again is that we are not looking to fascism. We are actually in fascism. So just understand that. But, trying to take a positive bent, we can do things. All right. So I was at this protest last weekend, and while there was a lot of supportive honks and yay, I support you, there was their typical people that were pro Trump and were basically figuratively spitting at us and issuing death threats, right? That were not taken seriously by the local police force. But there's all these people that are just driving by, kind of looking at us curiously. They may be Trump supporters, they may be apathetic, they may be liberal, but they're afraid to speak out. They're afraid maybe they're too busy or whatever, like, hey, wow, I agree with you, but I don't want anybody to know I agree with you. Or I don't really care. I don't know. I'm gonna sit on the fence and see where this all goes. If you are one of those people, I would suggest that you actually do your homework. I know that the world is a really, really complicated place right now, and that we all have our own things. We have financial struggles, we have families, we have a lot going on, etc. And we may not feel like we can fit in time. I know I can't. Like I said, most of my effort lately has been just creating posters or flyers or signs, right? And because that's all I can fit into my world right now. I am on a signal group with fellow protesters, and we talk, and we're kind of trying to coordinate and trying to build kind of a support network for each other. They're going to be doing a protest on Labor Day at another park. But get together, find people who are like-minded and get on a group chat with them. Please identify who your allies are. And they may be people that you may not 100% politically agree with. Allow for that. Okay. One of the problems that I've had with the left is a lot of the times, and this happens on the right as well, is this purist stuff. And when it happens on the right, we can see that splinter, and we go, good, they're splintering because there's purists, right? But if you look at the coalition of people who are supporting Trump right now, um, there are people from that, you've got the hardcore religious right. They're going to take this as far as they can get it, right? But then you also have the more corporate techno bros, right? That aren't probably very religious, if everyone's going to find something in the current status quo that they can glom onto and take to they're just like, okay, wow, yeah, that sounds like something I want, and they'll use this movement and this political era to get uh, can't speak to that. Left and the liberal side, you may come across people who may not be purists. They may not agree with you per se on, say, trans rights. Okay. Um, they may be very, okay, yeah, GLBTQ rights are important, but they may disagree with you on few things. Don't dismiss them out of hand, okay? They are, because I think we need to be able to hold space for people who don't agree 100% with us. And I think that that is one of the weakest parts that we have, is that we're not able to communicate and ally ourselves with anybody who may be a little bit different. We're not all going to agree ever. you know, we can't be these extreme ideologies on either side. You can see what's going on. It's not happening. It is happening right now. Look around at how divided and how political you are. okay? How divided and political we are. And a lot of that is because of social media, which I naively thought I'm a communications major. And my senior project when I was at my college was about this was right as the internet started. Okay. And I had been on what was called Prodigy, which was a network board. And then you had America Online, right? And they would have these little groups. Now they were not those were private servers that people would talk to. This was pre global internet. I did my project on basically I naively believed that these groups would come together and we would work out our differences and we would come to a more enlightened space. I was very naive to believe that at the time. That's not really what has happened. And so, but how do we do that? How do we rebuild and heal the divide that we've had, right? There is a lot. I'm currently watching. Well, back to it. You probably said that a long time ago. Thank you for joining. Um, it has been a yeah. It's just basically we have to find that okay, I'm trying to think what I'm trying to say here. So I went to a school that was very liberal, and it really alienated me, and I care about justice, I care about rights, okay? But I found myself to be an outsider a lot on the left because I don't fall hook line and sinker for every single little point that they make, okay? And so that puts me kind of in this weird limbo space where people are, we're just so polarized and we want to silence each other and we're fighting against each other. Where generally we go, I completely agree with you on these points. I disagree with you on this, but in the larger scheme of things, this is the where we are. So allegedly, and so I'm really appreciative of Gavin Newsom in a lot of ways because he's bringing that energy to the table that I think that we need in order to build up morale because he's actually addressing the elephant in the room of Trump's behavior. It is hysterical to find people that are Trump supporters that are not seeing it. They don't understand what he's doing. They think he's somehow mimicking or copying him because they believe he thinks that that's the way to get followers. That's not what he's doing. He is mocking and ridiculing him to put a mirror up and saying this is not normal behavior. But apparently that's lost on MAGA. They don't really get that. And it's hysterical to see that. Scary, but it is hysterical to see how they just don't get it. Like, they just think, "Oh, okay, yeah." And I don't know really what to say about that. Um, but so I appreciate it. Now, granted, I'm not a Democrat. I am independent. I lean into anarchy, which does not mean chaos, does not mean violence or anything like that. But it's just an ideology that evolutionarily I work towards. I'm not going to see it in my lifetime. Not going to see it probably in 10 lifetimes. But it is something that we should investigate because we need to understand the basic values that will allow human civilization to survive. Okay. So, what I mean is, when I was talking about natural law, is that a lot of people, and this is a weird thing because I tend to reject it because I'm not a religious person. I'm no longer a Christian, but I understand things at a spiritual level that are more fundamental rather than dogmatic. Okay. And a lot of people on the right go, "Oh, we need God's law, not man's law." And in a way, they may be correct. But they look at it and go, "Oh, the God that I believe in, that is the thing. Man's law brings about, things." And, gay and lesbian rights or whatever they don't like. And so, hello, I don't know who's joining me now. I see someone out there. I don't know who it is. Um, anyway, so, it is what does that mean? So I don't really like looking at it as God's law, but as like karmic law, like your actions in the world can come back and affect you. Okay. I'm actually pagan. I lean into witchcraft, but I'm more esoteric. But, you look at, say, let's just take pot laws, right? So in Ohio, we have legalized recreational and medical weed. Okay. But then another state has said, oh, well, we're still believing that this is not, we don't want this still to be legal. Now, granted, there's arguments that are very valid that talk about that weed is something that, you know, people should be allowed to do because it really isn't harming anybody else. It really isn't. And you do have a personal responsibility. Someone said, "Well, but you're going to you're going to smoke weed, and you're going to go into your car, and you're going to run some kid over, right?" Like that's always a fear monger about that. Or and that's the same with like alcohol, right? That people think, oh, well, we need to ban alcohol because there are some people who are drunk and they may do harmful things. And yes, they indeed are not in control of their actions, that they don't have an awareness about their actions and their responsibility. If I drink or if I smoke weed, I have a personal responsibility to do so in a safe and responsible manner. Okay. Do I need the state to intervene and tell me that is a bad thing and you're going to go out and harm somebody? I may not harm anything. If I'm harming myself, that's on me. Granted, if you harm somebody else, you are in violation of natural law, okay, or karmic law. Um, there's a really good presenter named Mark Passio. I highly recommend. Now, granted, if you're on the left, you may not like some of the stuff he says. He is an anarchist, so he is not for the state and he is not pro taxes. Just saying that. But I do recommend listening to him because I think that he is a really good foundational researcher and teacher that can really provide a lot of really good information to people that I think will help them. He's actually going to be doing a shadow work seminar in November, I believe, October or November. That if you don't know what shadow work is, you don't have to take his thing, but you can go and look out and start doing this process yourself, right? There are shadow work journals, there's shadow work videos, there's shadow work. And what shadow work is basically you're looking within yourself and you're sitting there saying, wow, why am I so triggered by this, that, or the other, right? And you go, why am I so angry? Or why am I afraid of this? Or why do you know what I mean? Whatever it is, generally there's a root within yourself that you had some issue or an event or whatever that made you experience the world around you in a certain way. And so you're reacting to the world. You're engaging with the world based on a lot of that internal trauma, whatever it is, Maybe you had a very authoritarian father, and so you have struggled to appeal to the love of your father that you never had. And so maybe Trump, fills that void for you. That's basically kind of understanding what shadow work is. And I highly recommend it. I think that it's becoming a more popular topic. I think we tend to think, oh, I'm not crazy. I don't need therapy. We all need therapy, folks, because we're all caught up in a lot of propaganda, a lot of brainwashing, a lot of just stuff, whether it's the religion of the Bible, religion of money, and our obsession and our constant striving of desire for money or things or whatever, or power or our ego. We look and we go, oh, wow, I need this. This is filling my ego, right? Um, so I think that it is really important to kind of like be more aware of that. Are we doing things out of, um, kind of out of an instinct, something that oh, something triggered me and I'm angry now. Why are we angry about that? Why do when we look at someone that they make us angry? Okay. So it is really important to kind of like be more aware of that. And so we all could benefit from doing that kind of work. Um, and I think foundationally going forward, in order to survive, we need that. Again, like I was saying before, please go out, reach out to your neighbors, to hi to all the new people. If you want to go ahead and give a thumbs up, let me know that you're here. That would be great. I want to meet you. If tell me if I'm sounding okay, volume wise. Um, but anyway, like I was saying before, is that go out and reach out to people that you know are like minded and start a group online and kind of stay in connection. I think we are going to need to really rebuild our communities and make sure that we're protecting ourselves. I think that going forward, I think that the powers that be have so successfully isolated each of us that we're fighting amongst ourselves and we are very fractured, and we need to rebuild our strength even if we do not ideologically, puritanically agree with each other. We need to be able to understand and form alliances with people that may have differences of opinion. You cannot be a purist in this day and age. You just can't. Okay. And that doesn't mean that moving forward, we can't have good conversations. But if we can't have discussions and go, hey, we're going to have to agree to disagree. Okay, it is really important that we understand how to do that, and that requires work. Okay. um, Apparently one of the situations is that and I don't I the jury is still out with regards on Gavin Newsom. I stated that I think Gavin Newsom is bringing a lot of really positive, interesting energy to the table in this fight. I think it's really a big morale booster, etc. But politically, I don't know that much about him. I don't live in California. I don't know what he's like really as a politician. He may be just as scammy as Trump. I wouldn't say he's probably as scammy as Trump, but he's a politician. He's going to do what he needs. I know a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, Gavin Newsom, vote, 2028. And we really need to get out of that mindset. Like, we can't have to keep, I know we joke about it and say, oh, I like this person, oh, run for president. John Stewart, run for president. Gavin Newsom, run for president. And, we want to have this magical fix, right? This one savior person that's going to solve all our problems. The thing is that we have to solve our problems. It is going to be at the local level. It is not going to be 4 years from now, some magical guy or girl or woman or whatever that's going to swoop in and that we can vote for. And hey, wow, everything's great. It's not going to happen at the 2026 midterms. Okay. We have to do it now. We can't wait until November 2026 because there may not be an election in November 2026. Okay. We have to do this stuff now. We have to be disruptive. Now, granted, being disruptive does not mean being violent. Okay. I think that a lot of talk about revolution and violent revolution and violence gets really caught up in a lot of this. We have to acknowledge that the powers that be are expecting that. They want to have that trigger point to basically to suspend rights and to declare martial law. If we have studied the civil rights movement, we will understand how um, how nonviolent revolution and resistance is so critical. All right. And this does not mean passivity. It is not pacifism. Pacifism is not part of the equation. This is just nonviolent disruptive resistance. Okay. Understanding your basic rights doesn't matter what is on that piece of paper. We have a right to free speech. We have a right to our own personal sovereignty. Okay. But I think that, where it's getting really, really hard is we're living increasingly in a society, and we may have passed that threshold where a lot of corporate ownership of our lives, Palantir, who is doing all of the surveillance, these people, these private corporations have so interjected themselves into our judicial system, into our political system, into lobbying, is that, they're going in there and they have basically wrote the rules. They've learned from past mistakes and they're just doing whatever they need to do because, like, they believe it's easier to get permission, or to get forgiveness than to get permission, right? And I think that they have thought that, if we are trying to talk about things beforehand, this is why things haven't changed, right? Because they see that there's a lot of people who have disagreements and it muddles up the system and they don't like that. They want things now. They want security now. They want all this and they see all this slow movement as being very muddled and they don't like it. So they're just doing and they're ignoring things and they're doing things regardless because, I'm watching a documentary right now called Katrina Come Hell or High Water. It is on Netflix. I highly recommend it if you are younger and you don't know what Katrina was, or if you don't remember. It was a really bad hurricane, but that really is a good understanding of how, like, if you understand disaster capitalism, that is what is going on right now, is that you creating an issue like problem, or you taking advantage of a problem and you're waiting for people to react, and then you already have that solution in the bank. You've already got that waiting in the wings, and that when this issue crops up or you have the opportunity to create the the problem, you can then do that to initiate a reaction, whether it's fear, anger, loathing, depression, whatever it is, among the masses. And then you introduce your solution, right? And so you have this. They've got a whole shelf full of solutions, all these plans in operation, and that they can just go ahead and roll them out when they need to. And they've been doing this. They all have a real long game to them. So that is what that is really all about. So just be aware of that, that this is a long game. This is not something that's going to just magically go away in 4 years or even in two. This is going to be a long game. And like I stated, please take care of yourself. Do your due diligence for yourself, mental health care, connect with your community, and start doing your homework. Um, we don't have to do this alone. I think that they wanted us to do this alone. If you feel like, well, I've got a job to go to, um, take the time. Do you have some um, um, free time? You know, get together with friends. It is really important to kind of be able to. We go, oh, we need to just ignore all this stuff, and yeah, we need to take a break from it. We do. We can't do it 24/7, but we can't remember to ever just stop acting. Okay, we may need to take breaks, but don't forget to come back to the table. Okay. We need to be able to come back and we need to be able to reconnect. If we need to take a step back, fine, take a step back. But we need to come back and regroup. Okay. That is the message I've got for today. I hope everyone is well. If you liked what I'm talking about today, please leave a message. Please share this. I want to try and get back onto social media a little bit more. I do have a podcast that I haven't been over in a long time. I've been very busy. My own personal life has been crazy. But yeah, so, just please feel free to check in. I'll try and make these more regular. I keep saying that. I don't really do it. I also have a TikTok channel and I share a lot of stuff over there. But if you like what you said, please subscribe, please share. And I would love to have more communication with people, just to kind of see what they have to say. Anyway, thank you very much. And you have a wonderful holiday weekend and support labor. Okay, take care. Bye.